Hey people, Strawberin0 here, and today I am reacting to the Callisto Protocol review by MandaloreGaming, the long-awaited finale sort of to the whole Dead Space playlist on Mandalore's channel. I'm sorry, but just seeing the word mid in Callisto Protocol has to be the funniest coincidence in the fucking whole universe. Anyway, let's just get right into it and see. I know next to nothing about Callisto Protocol other than it was pretty mid. As in the story was the combat was very and the game had such shit performance at launch. It made headlines, so yeah, I'm guessing this wasn't a great fucking game, so let's see what Mandalore has to say on the topic though.
The Callisto Protocol has been having a rough time, to put it lightly. A spiritual successor to Dead Space with many of those core team members on board, that released in a rough state on PC, has combat that's still being tweaked pretty heavily, and is now competing against Dead Space the Dead Space, or Dead Space 23. Spiritual successors can love doing the, hey, remember that? Except now, instead of purely tapping into nostalgia, it's essentially advertising a different game. I can't remember the last time I've seen something like this. But that said, I'm not going to mention the remake much, especially since this game came out before that, possibly to prevent that kind of comparison, but the original is definitely in play. Because if it wants to call back to the original trilogy as much as it does, then alright. Now, I did try to engage with it as its own thing. I played through it several times, found all the secrets, and even listened to the audio drama.
We're asking the questions around here, old-timer. So why don't you shut that metal squawk box you call a voice?
This voice is from a windpipe implant I got after a shootout on Ganymede. Keep talking to me like that and you'll find out what happened to the other guy.
Wait, you had Michael Ironside and didn't put him in the actual... So it still has a lot to talk about on its own terms. Though, there is the PUBG connection to talk about, which I was not expecting. They said they got rid of that, but it's going to come up in the spoilers. That about covers all the background basics, so what's this game all about? Fortunately, it's pretty simple. It's a few centuries in the future, and humanity has colonized parts of the solar system. Most of the colonies are overseen by the United Jupiter Company, or UJC. The thorn in their side is a radical terrorist group called the Outer Way, which has been wreaking havoc. Most recently, its leader Danny Nakamura led a huge attack on the Europa colony. The population was massacred, and you got out just in time. You play as Jacob Porter Lee, a UJC cargo ship pilot who works aboard the Karen. Jacob's latest runs have been from Black Iron Prison, a former mining colony on Jupiter's moon of Callisto. This contract has been so good that soon Jacob will never have to work again. His co-pilot Max thinks it's too good to be true and that something's up, but Jacob just tells him not to think about it. They're almost done after all. Until the Karen is boarded by the Outer Way, led by Danny herself. He vents his cargo into space in a desperate attempt to eject the boarders. The terrorists are now orbital Haagen-Dazs, but the Karen was damaged in the ordeal and violently crashes down into Callisto. Jacob survives unharmed, Max can now only get work as a Ju-On cast member, and then he dies. You're then treated to one of the most compassionate rescues I've seen in all of fiction.
One life sign detected. Continuing search.
Captain Ferris was sent to the prison to get you out, and finds another survivor,
You are being rescued. Do not resist.
Danny. Jacob is still reacting to this when the warden calls and orders his arrest as well. And that's our title drop.
Hey! I didn't do anything!
Welcome to Black Iron Prison, here's your complimentary health bar. And even though you were supposed to be here for life, you're going to be let out early. The prison is currently dealing with an unknown disease of the Tom Savini variety. So, get out of prison. Let's talk about the graphics.
Man, they really took the worst fucking part of Dead Space, which is just crawling through the vents, and put it in there, huh? I'm guessing it's a... no, wait. I think I heard people talking about this, that this game has... this is a loading screen, right? It's just masked as you just crawling through the vents, but it's loading in the next part of the level, like internally in the game. And I think people were shitting on this game because it had a lot of these, and there were still times where the game just fucking froze and had to load in. So essentially making all of those crawling through the vents pointless, and it might have been, as well been a fucking loading screen.
On a technical level, a lot of meaningless terms are thrown around like quadruple A level of production, that kind of marketing speak you'd expect to see on a Star Citizen delay post. So as a human, I'll say this game looks incredibly expensive, and what you're seeing is kind of selling it short. Besides usual YouTube compression, Callisto Protocol supports ray tracing, which can add a lot to some games, but you won't see it in this video for a few reasons. For one, I don't have the latest and greatest GPU line since the new Nvidia stuff looks like a ripoff, and turning on reflections cut my FPS in half without looking much better. As for ray traced shadows, they look horrible. It's like shimmering bugs are crawling across every surface. Even if I could
Ew, what the fuck?
run this, I wouldn't, since it looks way better without it. The light and reflections can look better than this, the shadows will just give you horrible hatching until they patch it. Callisto's a very visually detailed game, maybe the most out of anything I've played so far. Industrial environments can be so full of pipes and wires and other greebles that it gives me the same feeling of forgetting how my Factorio base works. Even the surface of Callisto can have a lot of richness and atmosphere to it, with some attention given to how you interact with the snow around you. The character models, and especially the animation in the face, may be some of the best I've seen in a game so far. Making the game look as real as possible clearly was a priority. Even besides faces, thought was given to what factors would change in animation. Are you walking or running down the stairs? Are you doing it with a weapon? Hell, if you upgrade that weapon with a grip, Jacob can change how he holds and shoots it. Sometimes. You can physically see your stored weapons, how you get caked in blood or prison Hershey's. I mean, it being so high-res is good on the fact that half the screen can sometimes be dedicated to the Jacob zone, but without a doubt they're pushing the graphics to be grounded, with some extremely impressive results at times. Every few years we get one of these games that really pushes some aspect of graphical realism forward, which overall can be a good thing for the greater game ecosystem. You know, technique and technology is pushed forward, but those games themselves, sometimes that...
Oh man, the fucking order, holy. I get a feeling nobody even remembers this game by now.
graphical
Holy
power
fuck.
comes at a cost. When realism is the driving force without options, that sacrifices convenience. When Arthur Morgan loots bodies or skins animals, it looks seriously impressive, until it gets old and you want to skip it. Even moving and playing is slower, less immediately responsive than other games. You move between stances and go at the speed a real person does. Everyone knows Red Dead Redemption was wildly successful, so the approach can work. But how does that go in an action horror game where you fight swarms of I can't believe they're not zombies? Where the act of even buying ammunition has to make sure you're immersed in the setting. When you're making a game, a human player is an endless ocean of what will they do and what will we do about it. You have fantastic games that embrace that. Then sometimes the studios die and the developers go crazy, because they spent sleepless nights wondering how many tin cans they could put in a room until someone stacks it and breaks the level. Like, Arx Fatalis can look janky, but this is a video game. Generally, gameplay that looks more realistic comes at the cost of how much control a player has over it. Callisto is on the level of you cannot play it while an audio log is running. You can only listen to it in the menu and not in gameplay. I had found a way to do it, like maybe it was unclear controls, but they patched that out. Where enemies would once swarm you, they patched their AI so they only fight you one at a time. There's more to talk about with that later, and I'm not saying the launch version was the hidden combat system no one understood. This was Glenn's intention for how he wanted you to play it. No. Fighting multiple enemies always looked weird and janky, so the post-launch changes were made to prevent that situation from happening. It used to require more strategy and quick thinking to prevent you from being overwhelmed, but being overwhelmed looked like dying in a tumble dryer. The issue is, this approach has made the combat flawed on a fundamental level, no matter what patch version or console you're playing on. I'm sorry if I've gotten too far ahead, it's just that hyper-visual realism is a root cause of many other mechanical issues. Keep that...
I mean, as it always is, like... Man, the AAA developers just never fucking learn. Actual people who buy and support games and then they tell their friends, oh, you gotta play this game, right? We don't look for graphics. There are so many fucking indie video games out now that don't aim for realistic graphics, that have great fucking gameplay. And there are so many stylized games that when you have stylized graphics, you can basically make the game look worse, but the stylized graphics will completely mask that and sometimes make the game look better than if it was a realistic video game, right? And then there are like fringe examples of games that are gameplay first but still have fucking amazing graphics. Like Ready or Not is not an indie game, but it's made by like one of those smaller companies, right? And it's very much gameplay first. It's a spiritual successor to SWAT, if you ever heard about that. Like very tactical, going through the building, checking with a fucking camera under the door, putting wedges in doors so enemies don't flank you from behind or something, commanding a squad of NPCs. And it looks fucking incredible to boot. Like, just making shiny graphics is not going to impress anybody. You have to put the gameplay and the story first and tie the story into the gameplay, and then you can worry about the graphics. Like, the graphics are literally maybe the third or fourth most important fucking thing in your video game. And putting them as the highest priority as number one is just route to fucking failure.
That in mind. As for art direction, this'll sound weird, so stick with me. The environment is at its best when it's embracing its main premise. It's a prison colony on another world. Like, the main cell blocks are a panopticon that goes who knows how far down. Solitary is a torture box that hangs over the abyss. You can find the handiwork of other inmates getting their hands on the guards. On the planet's surface, sometimes you can only track enemies by flashes of lightning or finding their trails in the snow. I'll say it again, there are times when the game can have excellent atmosphere. Then you have the sewer, or adjacent sewer halls, or underground shantytown. Sometimes it's a dystopian space prison, sometimes it's a vaguely industrial hall that you could pick out from any other game. I don't think I've been to space prison since the Riddick game, so it's a neat setting to see brought to life. It just sucks when it turns generic and you get the parade of concrete pipe rooms. You know the ones. You've seen these. A lot of the enemy designs are in that category too, and to make it worse, there's an extremely low variety of them. Something a little depressing is that one of the more interesting enemy designs is a head that emerges from an egg like a snake and tries to murder you. Except that it's a QTE enemy, which they've placed around enough that it's annoying and you'll hate him by the end. It's also one of 2 QuickTime Event exclusive enemies, and we'll get into this game in QTEs. But it's also that this is the grabber that was cut from Dead Space 1 in 2008. It's clear people there liked Extraction, but this can't be where the ambition was at. The enemy variety being so low that an old, cut Dead Space design feels like a highlight is just bizarre. Though on the mini-boss front there is the 2-headed man. I hope you like the 2-headed man. 8 heads are better than 1. You can never have enough werewolves. They did bring back the brutal, elongated death animations, and those are welcome. They also toned down their frequency so you die in a matter-of-fact way more often, which is also good. As for music, the tension-building tracks are serviceable, nothing really memorable. It's kind of a droning loop where sometimes something sticks out, but not for too long. There were some tracks I dug, like some of the combat music and the fun little uncovering the mystery theme, so it did have its moments. When it comes to sound design, the environment was the winner by miles. It is so rich and layered, and machinery can be especially impressive. Sometimes you can roughly track an enemy by where it's clunking around an event. How it uses spatial sound is the best I've heard in a AAA game in a long time. Maybe that was what they meant by quadruple A.
Damn, that is very layered. There were a lot of things going on in the background, and you could, like, pick up each single individual thing that was happening. Holy. That's fun.
The melee combat, which you'll be doing a lot of, also sounds good and meaty. Different story for the guns. As great as the environment is, most of the weapon and enemy sounds are pretty stock. I can't think of anything I found distinctive or memorable about them. I couldn't shake the feeling that the look and sound of the world was a priority and what actually inhabited it was an afterthought. Like, the sound of the vending machine stuck out to me. There was no unsettling distant enemy roar, and even the timing on some of the jump scares seemed slightly off. I mean, it's rarely subtle anyways, they love showing you the scary thing. They actually started banking on it filling your entire screen, so it's shocking they didn't do more with the environment. I guess I don't feel too bothered by a blue-collar Freddy Fazbear. If your sound technology is that good, you'd think you'd play with it more, but they rarely do. Instead, it's be in your face and loud. You can do that sometimes, it's just annoying to see such a waste of potential. Speaking of annoying, audio logs. The delivery is competent, and so are the background effects. Across the whole game, nothing sounds outright bad. The worst it gets to is, that's okay.
It's the only way. Otherwise, they just get bigger, stronger.
These are generic, which is what makes them so irritating. If they were amazing or funny bad, I might not mind. But if you're forcing everyone to stop in their tracks and listen to these, then there should be something more substantial here. Going back to this game's roots, System Shock 2 has some of the best audio logs in games, and you don't have to pause for those.
Glory to the many. I am a voice in their choir.
This kind of thing drives me crazy, so enough of that, let's get into the mechanics. In combat, the melee is extremely simple. So simple that people were dying because they didn't comprehend how easy it was. To dodge, you alternate between moving left and right. It's not based on what arm they're attacking with or where they're coming from, just pick left or right and then keep switching back and forth. You melee them when they're not attacking, and the cycle repeats. However, you can also block. Any blocks you see here were either an accident or I recorded them just for this video. Well, here he just QTE grabbed me, so that didn't matter. Anyways, if you block them you take some damage, but less than if they'd hit you without you blocking. There are no block-only attacks, but there are some attacks that can't be blocked. These can be avoided by dodging, where again, you take no damage. Now this seems confusing at first, but I asked one of my friends who's big into Tekken about this. Our methods were different, but we hit the same conclusion, which is, why the fuck would you ever block? And they will tempt you with a—
Yeah, that sounds like a why the fuck would I ever block situation.
Upgrades for the stun baton. Unlock the counter and sweep them off their feet. It's more tolerable on lower difficulties, since on maximum security you scrounge for supplies and the enemies hit like trucks. But it doesn't change the fact that no matter how high you upgrade your baton, you get the same result of taking some hits when you could have just not gotten hit. It's a survival horror game where you don't know when you're getting more health, or buying it is stupidly expensive. There's no perfect parry or perfect dodge, the screen goes slow-mo sometimes, which is neat. I'm not sure why, like maybe that was implemented at one point. But while you have better tools for crowd control, in certain situations, I could see the block maybe being useful in the launch version. In this one-on-one arcade brawler version, there's no reason for it. Actually, sent to a mining prison colony, ancient horror beneath it, melee combat that falls apart in a group. Is this Gothic? Oh god. So now we
No, it's not Gothic. Because blocking in Gothic is fucking amazing and gets you out of any attack that the enemy makes. Unless it's an animal, then you can't block the attacks, so... maybe this is Gothic. No, because Gothic has amazing graphics, not this shit you see on screen. Gothic is a graphical masterpiece, and let me cope. It's good, I swear, it's so good, man. I swear. Just never fight more than enemy. one than more enemy at once.
Throw guns into the mix. You can try to use your guns as guns, but this will become less and less effective on higher difficulties. They're good on tiny enemies, the grabbers and the two-headed man, but not the standard goons. Instead, your guns are mainly used as a kind of combo finisher. It's not as cool as Gun Kata or Devil May Cry, you just sort of snap into it and do it. It's also not necessary for about the first third of the game. You can use guns to take away a ranged attack from one of the enemies, but...
Yeah, this is also something I heard when this game came out, that It's weird how melee-centric it is for being a fucking spiritual successor to Dead Space.
Melee upgrades are still more effective. By scavenging around the prison, you can find money or trinkets to bring to a 3D printer. From here, you can upgrade your weapons, including an alt-fire at the end. You automatically get two, a pistol, and a shotgun. Though, through exploration, you can find other weapon schematics, like a pistol and a shotgun. And a rifle. But that's not the whole story, since, after all, Dead Space weapons can have pretty wild alt-fires. In Callisto, you have the hand cannon's explosive rounds, the riot shotgun's explosive rounds, the skunk gun's homing rounds, the rifle's homing rounds, and the tactical pistol's burst fire, which has mule kick recoil. If you did make the mistake of buying the new weapons, you still get ammo for them. You can never store them away, and ammo will keep dropping, which is a problem when you only have 6 inventory slots, later getting up to 12. The arsenal with the alt-fires is already really uninspired and dull, but I swear someone tried to hide it, because some upgrades are borderline scam expensive. To demonstrate how mind-bogglingly fucked the balance is, let me show you this. When I beat my new maximum security run, it opened up New Game Plus. You don't get New Game Plus rewards like extra money, or a skin, or anything, you just get to go through it again. And I did. I explored everywhere, sold everything, only tried to get upgrades. And when I got to the last printer in the game, I still didn't have every upgrade because they're just that expensive.
After 2 entire playthroughs? What the fuck?
I did do it halfway through a 3rd run out of pure spite, where I then learned from Steam that more people have beaten New Game Plus than unlocked all the upgrades.
I mean, that sounds about right.
Because you need to play it efficiently 2.5.
This is one of the achievements I would legitimately unlock through like a Steam achievement unlocker just to have all the achievements. Because why the fuck would you want to commit to a 2.5 playthroughs of goddamn Callisto Protocol, man?
2.5 times to have any chance. And no, the money drops based on difficulty aren't going to be high enough margins to make a difference. You need to sell high-value items that are static, like from boss fights or treasures, all in service of the most premium Madagascar vanilla weapons you could have in a third-person shooter, to the point it's copying them and their secondary fire modes. Then make it horribly expensive so maybe less people will know. And what really gets me is, there's room for another there. The most fun thing in the game is the grip module. It's like Dead Space's Kinesis, but Sam Witwer's in the game, so they force unleash the hell out of it. You can throw objects like Kinesis, but it's more fun to just throw the whole enemy. You can juggle them around for crowd control, or chuck them into violent machinery. There are even the designated grip amusement parks, where you chuck your enemies into the big machines over and over again. It is mindless, but it's fun
really reminds me of Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Because it's one of the
where you had the rooms where the developers just wanted you to kick people around into spikes, and it was fucking amazing.
few times in the game where it feels like you're fully in control. Not since Dark Messiah have there been so many
Thank God I'm not alone in thinking about this immediately.
convenient spike walls, and you can upgrade this thing too, so another reason to avoid new guns. I love the effects on it too, and it makes me sad we didn't get this creativity on something like a ranged energy weapon. Even without that, grip feels fun where melee feels tedious. The main use of ranged weapons becomes shooting the tentacles, which is simple. Eventually, when enemies take enough damage, they erupt tentacles, and if you don't shoot these or break them in time, they'll completely regenerate and become crab people. They hit harder and take more punishment, so it does push you to be faster, but they can be dodged all the same. And ultimately, the almighty grip doesn't care how many tentacles they have. This is another example of wasted potential because when they were first showing off the game, the enemies looked pretty generic. I was hoping they were hiding more interesting designs away, so when I first saw this, I was pretty excited. Maybe your upgrades or your inventory or something might affect what they can mutate into. Or at least, if you didn't shoot the tentacles fast enough, they'd mutate into a new form that you'd have to change up the strategies for. Maybe one would grow some kind of weapon that you can only block and not dodge. Stuff like that. Instead, they're always the same. One character even goes,
I think those things are changing. They're evolving.
And it's like, what a great idea. Your enemies start as generic zombies, but as the game goes on, they become more twisted and alien, and you have to change up how you play. Instead, it's zombies that sprout burla pasta all the
Well, that would be interesting, so they didn't put it into the Callisto Protocol, because, yeah, it would be too interesting for this game.
I can't overstate enough how much the lack of variety hurts it. Even beyond the necromorphs, it's established that insane killers are on the loose. Or fight the prison guards, who can be just as bad. How about the robots? I love the robots.
Inmates cease all hostile activity.
Damn.
These guys are great. Their heads are like giant closed-circuit television cameras, they're imposing and brutal. The game teaches you to sneak past them, and then you encounter two. And because they're introduced as being so powerful, the game lets you know to shoot them in the face. This blows my mind. It's like someone said, we introduced the security robots as being too scary and people won't want to fight them. So don't let someone make a decision or experiment, tell them it'll be okay.
Unit immobilized. No signal.
Wow.
Error code J19 have.
And the fucking award for most wasted potential I have ever seen in a single enemy design goes to the Callisto fucking Protocol, baby.
A united day.
Callisto Protocol
You just saw
sweep.
all the robot fights. The others are all broken. I thought for sure one would spring to life and grab you for an easy QuickTime event jump scare, but instead they're just more set dressing. And I don't know if I should be thankful for that or not. The game is already chock full of QuickTime events, including the open a door variety. Also, someone really liked that one box of swarmers in Dead Space, so that can happen sometimes. They're frequent and contribute to what I hate about this game more than anything. Is that a grabber? Okay. Oh, for the love of God. Let's glide back to the Ishimura for a moment, because that game had QuickTime events too. The necromorphs come in all kinds of flavors, but they share one thing visually, which is stay away. They're gross, they cut you apart or jump all over you. If you were having to mash a button, that typically meant you screwed up and one got too close. Isaac's melee doesn't look or feel powerful, it's desperate. Having control ripped away from you was alarming because you weren't used to that. Dead Space 2 had these as well, and they'd show up in some action set pieces. Again, not too often, but it introduced another way to take away control. At a few points, you might have to crawl through a vent. It wasn't often, and a good half the time something would happen, like the vent collapsing or something waiting for you. Since I played it after Callisto a while back, I decided to count it. I didn't count backtracking for something like the Pang puzzle, and to be nice to Callisto, I didn't count anything under 10 seconds. Now, I have a local cult in my area recruiting by putting index cards above the urinals in grocery stores. They seem pretty bonkers, like big time crazy, but thank you to the Galaxy Federation of Light for this index card.
The truth will set you free. God Kingdom is coming to Mother Earth now. Check it out on YouTube, the Galaxy Federation of Light channel. Bless you always. Love, Mother, Father, God. I am a light worker. Fuck
Anyhow,
it.
the final count was 7, with something scary happening 3 times. For the Callisto Protocol, a game roughly the same length, the final count was 23.
Oh
Again,
my
I wasn't
fucking
counting
God.
short vents, or any wall shimmy, which I really should have been. And yes, I know it's a way to hide area loading, and when the game is this detailed, that means a lot of loading. My point is, you feel little control just holding forward, and you do that a lot. Then you dare to enter a room and get punished for it with a QuickTime event. Enter the Orb of Melee. Alternate between left and right to dodge. It's not engaging, and the fun, more clowny-looking methods seem to not be what the game wants. Not having the camera fixate on an enemy or anything else out of your hands means staying at range, which, as we've gone over, the game doesn't seem to want you to do that outside of the grip fun zones. Melee is too integral even on a visual design level. Dead Space was built entirely around keeping your enemies back. Use weapons, use powers. The necromorphs will tear you apart up close, keep them away. Callisto Protocol has a different approach. Konani Tanaskanai. Shikashi. Wasoretata. Oh, Shokashu!
Bless whoever has drowned this because this is fucking amazing. If only the actual game was either this stylish or this much fun, they would have had something going for them.
Okay, this might have been exaggerated. The point is, trying to invoke Dead Space feels completely empty. Compared to Dead Space 2, I might even say, my mom won't hate this game. It does have the Transformers guy, but I know he was in a bunch of romantic comedies too. I just don't know many Josh Duhamel movies. What has Josh Duhamel been in?
I know about 88 Josh Duhamel movies including Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers.
Okay, I get it. I could pick out homages and speculate on what is and isn't, but there's one I want to focus on because it's so strange. It's a section in Dead Space 3, actually. After traveling through a frozen hellscape, you come to the rusted remains of an old colony. It's deep underground, and you face off against blind, emaciated creatures. You can sneak past them, but these stealth sections are tiny, and you miss out easy loot. Killing them was a right choice, and a lot of people didn't even know this could be a stealth section. Okay, Callisto Protocol. After traveling through a frozen hellscape, you come to the rusted remains of an old colony. It's deep underground, and you face off against blind, emaciated creatures. You can sneak past them, but you've got the stealth takedown.
Every game gotta have the fucking stealth takedown.
It's longer, but even if they find you, Sir Kick-Slot left all the spike walls around. They can't swarm you, they'll only fight one at a time. It's surreal because long ago I saw how this section could be better. They clearly went into it with the same thought in mind, making it longer, but they made it less tense because their combat options trivialize it, and fighting them without grip or stealth kills would just be tedious as they line up and take a number. This is the best example of the combat being brain dead easy or chopping down a forest in Minecraft. They added a hardcore mode recently, which I did try, but when the enemies in the tutorial were taking a dozen hits to kill and dropping between 1 and 2 Callisto funbucks, I decided I didn't want to die of tedium. That's the word.
Man, that's the Skyrim Legendary Edition way of doing higher difficulty. I remember I got into an argument with my friend who, I swear, you just have to be... Everything up here has to be completely vacant to consider Skyrim Legendary mode any fun at all. Every single enemy in on Legendary difficulty in Skyrim takes like 15-20 fucking hits and they can't do anything to you because when you're beating the shit out of them with your fucking stick, they just stand there and take it. And usually this resulted in, like my friend openly talked about his experience with that difficulty, and he often said that he would just stand on high rocks and like pepper enemies with arrows, and I was like, why the fuck would you subject yourself to such difficulty setting? Like, what's the fun in doing all of that? I just don't fucking get it. Why would you make a difficulty like this where enemies so tanky that it's unfun to play through?
It has its moments, but overall this game feels tedious. I can only wonder what went on behind the scenes because something doesn't feel right about it. A lot of time and talent was put into making the death animation sick. It's too bad that being alive isn't 10% that entertaining. You know what? Let's talk about the story. As great as the world can look, it's impressive how little you know about it. It's a two-level problem. Dead Space gave you glimpses into the greater world and setting, which you didn't need, but it was expanded on more in 2. If the story you're telling is compelling enough, you don't need to explain all the lore fluff. But if you give people both, that can enhance the core experience. Or maybe the story being told isn't that interesting, but playing the game and being in the world is good enough that it doesn't matter. Even if the gameplay is terrible, a great interesting story can push you through it. Only an interesting setting is much harder. Still, a lot of people can latch on to lore. So imagine my surprise when Callisto conveys virtually none of it. There are no text entries, and audio logs don't say anything about the greater setting. The most you get are snippets in the character biographies. And even these are one note, they're more just to show that everyone working at Black Iron is awful. Yeah, prison staff aren't the cream of the crop. We're not breaking new ground. Some sci-fi jargon fluff can make the world seem deeper, but the story is so generic it's writing off of obvious cliches. Maybe the UJC isn't good. You know why. Because they're the company. It's hard to word, it's like, you only have things you've seen before to go off of, and all those assumptions will turn out to be true. The most interesting aspects are mainly empty, so your imagination fills them. But get this, that Helix Station audio drama I mentioned has a lot more insight into the world. The UJC have these Starship Trooper commercials, you understand more the state of Earth and how the solar system is the way it is. There are rumors of space station colonists called Gummers that had all their hair and teeth fall out, and their bodies have degraded in 0G. The main character and story have so much more going on that it looks like Lord of the Rings next to the game. It's extremely well produced with good acting and still very generic. It's listening to a high-budget alien RPG session. That feeling refreshing tells you how dire things are.
Where am I going?
If you don't want to learn the mysteries of Black Iron Prison and PUBG, go to here.
Damn, that's a pretty long spoiler section for
One note also
a
applies
game like this.
to the character stuff. Despite being a cargo pilot, Robert E. Lee takes well to prison very quickly. He meets another prisoner named Elias who will serve as the guy in the chair who can help them both get out. I'm sure I had the same thought a lot of people did, which is I wish you could spend more time in the regular prison before things go to shit. But that could also make you feel less lost, prolong the inevitable, and areas that could be important like the yard or the mess hall just aren't in the game. As I said before, the prison aspect feels underused, but it's also not entirely a prison. The first half of the game is get to the thing so we can get out, and precious little happens. You can also say most of Dead Space is Isaac Clarke fixing a ship, but there's some fun back and forth between the characters. Isaac is dealing with Nicole, and beyond space monsters, there's a Lovecraft element beneath it all. What is the purpose of the marker and what are the strange whisperings? It leaves some mysteries open, but it's not banking purely on speculation. In Callisto, you're at ground zero of the virus outbreak, but with very little exploring and using your eyeballs, it's clear the prison was experimenting with the virus. So that can't be a twist, it's more where did this come from and why are they doing it? Jacob is also being haunted by visions of Max and some kind of anime cube. There's been a lot of cubes in my life recently. Anyhow, Elias explained the health bar they installed can scramble your brain a bit. Any hallucinations he's experiencing are going to be from that. Along the way, Danny is also freed, but runs off on her own agenda. There's no uneasy alliance between the three, and you're even out of contact with Elias for a good chunk. When you meet back up with him, Jacob asks what he did to be imprisoned. He says he killed in self-defense, but still admits he had responsibility for the situation.
Made a lot of bad decisions back then.
Yeah, well, you were probably just dealt the shitty hand.
No. It was just to blame everyone else. But then I realized this was on me. You can't keep running from what you've done.
Goodness, I better myself.
Captain Ferris is around and transforming.
There's always a price to pay.
Just as we're getting more to Elias, he dies.
What the fuck?
Come on!
Oh man.
It's because of you. I got out.
The music swells, his life chokes out, and I was amazed that I felt sad. The performances are great enough to carry the moment, and it does feel sad that you didn't get to know him. Considering how much nothing there was until this point, it feels like a moment from another game. We get back on track though, because Danny shows up to loot him.
Hey, what are you doing? Hey!
There might be more of him though. You get a glimpse of him talking to somebody else, which seems like a tease for a DLC. They reluctantly team up, and Jacob tries to chastise her for ripping out Elias's implant. She explains they need it to survive, and he's been ripping out implants of people all game. Also saying that Jacob didn't really know him and might have just been using him. Because Jacob is a survivor. I don't know about that example, but that's the theme the game wants to beat you over the head with. Jacob will do whatever it takes to survive. Between more foiled escape attempts, Danny reveals why she and the Outer Way boarded his ship. She believes that he and his cargo had something to do with the attack on Europa. The UJC is actually evil, and the Outer Way are freedom fighters, because of course they are. And get this, he doesn't have what she's looking for. Maybe he did have nothing to do with it. Exploring, you find more signs of experiments, and also strange conference rooms. It seems the warden would like hanging out in these, and also will appear holographically to tell the population that what's happening is for the good of all mankind. Traveling further, deep beneath Black Iron Prison is the original mining colony of Arcus. It was destroyed nearly a century ago by its own outbreak of the virus. UJC covered the whole thing up and built the prison over it, except some research was still being done in the old colony, because this is where the virus originated from. Not from pure experiments or from the blood of a bull, but from a massive alien creature that was dwelling beneath the surface. Most of the moon is an abyssal ocean of alien terror, and I immediately wish that Jacob's suit was a diving suit, and this was completely underwater, and a different game entirely. We could have had people morphing into bizarre, deep-sea inspired creatures, but it's just zombies all the way through. We're above a sea of pure evils and unknowns, and we just get a kaiju that has larvae that make zombies. But not always. In the original outbreak, one of the colonists retained their entire
And the award for the biggest missed opportunity when it comes to the setting and environment goes to the Callisto Protocol.
Intelligence and got superhuman strength and longevity. UJC dubbed him Subject Zero and has been trying to replicate it ever since. Well, the mutating Captain Ferris appears to be their dream come true, Subject Alpha, which makes everything start to sound more like the Anderson Resident Evil movies. Jacob escapes, but Danny is now well on her way to joining the many. Jacob wants to try and save her, even if he has no clue how, and luckily he's contacted by the doctor who installed his health bar. This is Dr. Mahler, and like most people in Jupiter's Elan school, she is full of guilt. She's burdened by the secret you discovered in the dark heart of Black Iron Prison. UJC was experimenting on the inmates. Wait, do they think that was like a twist? You've known that for hours. You might have known that before you picked up the game. We've already gone over this. How is it a reveal? Subject Zero? It's really this bland?
The next phase of human evolution.
When I first heard that, I think I felt something bursting in my chest. What year is it? Does the biophage virus let you use 100% of your brain? Mahler explains that to cure Danny, Jacob will need to inject her with a DNA sample from Subject Alpha. So now you have a good reason to go face down Starkiller. But Mahler also starts a data transfer between you and Danny's chips, so you can see more of what she knows. You travel into Danny's memories of the Europa attack, and it's revealed that the anime cube was a stand-in for the worm larva tube, and that Danny's sister died in the attack. And second reveal, Jacob knew there was definitely something fishy about the runs he and Max were doing. So the Max visions were his guilt over knowing something was up. But there's even more.
Europa wasn't a terrorist attack. They doctored the footage to cover up what they were planning to test at Black Iron.
Why are we retreading this too? We know UJC was behind it. And there's more I don't get about this, but we'll hold off a bit. Jacob is now driven to help Danny to make things right, and they discover the Illuminati Tower. There's some bizarre furniture and displays, what looks like a Greek warrior slaying the monster beneath the surface, and golden masks, which prepares you to meet the Warden and the Evil Council.
Right on time. He approaches. The survivor. Solitarius.
Where's the Alpha?
The Warden smugs about Jacob really isn't an innocent and he'll do anything to survive. It's delivered like Jacob has been ruthless, but he's mainly been falling. He didn't steal Elias's heir and everyone he fought was in self-defense, but that one guy did say wait before he got him. Is it to parallel Elias where the decision put him in the situation? Where the decision is muddy enough that he could still be in denial about it? I don't know, the Warden talks like he's been eating eyeballs and not falling and climbing. Then he explains the point of the Callisto Protocol.
The protocol isn't about death. It's about life. Our future lies out there. Our destiny.
This is what I mean about the lack of knowledge about the setting hurting the story. The next phase of human evolution will help humanity survive in space. Except it never clearly established that humanity isn't doing well in space. Your only insight is an alley post-terrorist attack, a cargo ship, and a prison. It was a cover-up, but a prison moon isn't a great use of resources if we're struggling. Having rundown areas in space can imply the opposite. Imagine how far technology would have to come and how mundane space would be for there to be a shanty town on Mars. I'm just assuming we're stuck in the solar system in this setting, but even that's unclear. Whale 3 did muddy it up. Dead Space made the issues of its setting way more visible, like extinct animal friend plushies or synthetic plants. This is raising the stakes when we don't know what the damn card game is. My view of Italy wouldn't be clear if I was only in prison there. After that, the Warden has you fight Ferris to
kinda true.
prove his evolution is superior. His main purpose has also been to say that Jacob is guilty.
Are you trying to run from what you've done?
You fight him, he gets big, he dies, and the Warden loses his bet.
Oh, don't do it, you asshole! Fucking loser!
What are you so worked up about?
I put a lot of money on that dickhead to win.
How much did you bet?
$1 million bucks!
Oh.
You think you've beaten us? Ferris was weak, an imperfect vessel. But in that sample is the key to unlocking a centuries-old dream.
The dream of space travel? Or something else? I'm also not sure why the Warden only wants the syringe because there's a whole lot of leftover Sam Witwer over there. Anyways, he was a hologram the whole time, the place starts blowing up, there's only one escape pod and Jacob throws Danny on it. She has the proof to expose the UJC, and Jacob has come to terms with what he's done. Mahler said she belonged in Black Iron, and in the end, he accepts that he does too. It is one note, but it is an arc, and I can't—
Jacob, there might be a way out after all.
Reactor for temporary savings activated.
But I'm going to need your help.
Oh cool, it's like Dead Space. Okay.
What a fucking wet fart of an ending. Holy fuck.
Hey, the Illuminati thing opens a lot of questions. I won't waste your time speculating because PUBG. I haven't played it in a while and didn't know it had a story. Taken on its own, I thought the protocol was inspired by PUBG, the in-game protocol. They had tried for years to recreate Subject Zero and couldn't, so the new Warden Cole had a radical idea. Evolution won't happen in the lab, it'll happen in the wild. The environment being too controlled must be the flaw. The Europa attack was an outbreak of a diluted, airborne version of the virus. It killed but didn't turn people into creatures, or create meat moss, or all the eggs, or, well, who knows how the virus works, and it doesn't matter. Even though a lot of people died and no alpha was produced, along with anything of value, this inspired the Warden. So he turned his prison into a Fortnite map. All the cells were opened, the robots were ordered to kill any humans, and the virus released. This executive order was the Callisto Protocol. And it worked. He got his alpha, even though it died to a normal man. On its own, a battle royale doesn't determine who's the smartest or strongest, there are all kinds of outside factors. Ferris may have lost, but this leading to a new competing race of goop people could be interesting. But what did he mean by centuries-old question? At first I thought purely the setup was a homage to PUBG, like, oh, it's a secret battle royale. Then I spent 3 whole minutes on the story page. To win the battleground is to be Vir Solidarius, the lone survivor. Hang on. They changed the letter around, but centuries-old Cabal, what is that? Oh, this is like Project Snowblind, where it couldn't be Deus Ex at the last second. It's still basically a PUBG tie-in with minimum effort to scrub it out. That's why these lofty talks about space colonization make no sense, and why there's very little mention of any lore of the greater setting. Apparently in PUBG's future, the Earth is very degraded and death games are legal. They may have built a setting extended out from that, and then scrapped it. That explains why you're told so little about the setting and why things don't add up. The Warden's original plan may have been, these Sam Witwers will look real fucking cool in the arena. But you know what? That would at least have everything add up. It doesn't mean the game was amazing at one point, but the hollowness of the world makes so much sense now. I can't believe it's not PUBG. I was not expecting this. Oh, it's a scary lullaby. It really is painful because in a perfect world, this would be the debut of a great new sci-fi horror franchise. But instead I played a game that doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. There is some fun to be had with stuff like the grip, but melee is the core. A core that's still being tweaked that has the depth of the cha-cha slide and not half that fun. The story is barren and one note, and keeps trying to remind you of a different game. If this wants to succeed, it has to get weird and off the range. It can't keep invoking Dead Space. The remake has already won that war, even if parts of it were more sanitized. They have elements in the game that they could do interesting things with, it's just a question of whether they will. Between that and figuring out combat, it's gonna be a rough road. Obviously, no, right now I don't recommend the Callisto Protocol, especially not at full price. I'll keep an eye on it though, I'll play their new story edition later. For now though, you can just play the original Dead Space again. Any Dead Space game actually. Even 3. That has co-op and Nick Crompton comes back from 2. Dead Space Mobile's not too shabby. Can always try that. This
what the fuck? Dead Space Mobile looks kinda weird.
Ready.
Because that's what hell is all about, Robbie. Repetition.
Oh man, that's fucking animated sequence was so good. I'm skipping the credits because this has been a long enough video,
that's
I
an
think.
easy one. 7th gen was pretty nor low, but Halo might not be the direct follow-up. We'll see how things go, but there might be some hints.
Well, boys and girls, we took the trip to Midtown and yeah, shit was mid. Shit was mid as fuck from where I'm sitting. And yeah, I'm definitely not hot on trying this game, so not much to say, just holy fuck. If you're making a game with a really cool idea, don't base it on something else. possibly like undermining your really cool original idea. And if you're making a game based on something else, make sure you take the correct lessons from that thing. Like, I cannot imagine a spiritual successor to Dead Space having bad combat. The combat of Dead Space was... it was sorta simple when you broke it down, but it was beautiful and it felt really fucking good. This just ain't it from all that Mandalore has described. And yeah, that's everything from me, folks, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.